To promote my new flower shop, I had one place print my business cards, another print my brochures, and a third, my signs. Now my roses aren't red, my violets aren't blue, my geraniums look dead, and I don't know what to do.
Staples can help your business stand out with signs, banners, and brochures that are a true reflection of your company. And now at Staples, spend $50 or more on print and marketing services and get $5 off your next in-store purchase.
Now my business is blossoming, and I'm spending less green.
Exclusions apply. In-store only. Ends 6/23/18.
Good morning. In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our common interests. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice,
we are all patriots, and tonight the Patriots are world champions.
Set to go, snap, ball down, kick up, kick is on the way, and it is good! It's good! It's good!
Shotgun, there's the snap, it's still high. Quick throw, it's intercepted at the goal line. It's intercepted by Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler is intercepted Russell Wilson at the goal line. 20 seconds left.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Full Press Patriots Podcast. I am your host. I am Ian Glendon. And I just want to be the first, or probably the 100th person of the day, to wish you a happy 4th of July. And as always, I welcome in my co-host, Mike Debate. He is the managing editor of Full Press Coverage Patriots. And Mike, welcome to the show. That was always my favorite speech of all time because, despite what was actually going on in the movie, they, felt the need to throw out a shout out to the New England Patriots. So it's one reason why Independence Day is one of the greatest movies ever.
Oh, absolutely. You cannot argue that fact. And the fact that he gave that speech in tandem with Mr. Kraft was absolutely on point. That is why Bill Pullman will forever be a beloved president in the history of this country. You got to love that. You got to admire that. All I can say is nice work. That was primo nice work. You took probably two of my favorite speeches of all time, melded them together into a cornucopia of Patriots porn, my friend, and it's better than you can possibly imagine. That just caps my 4th of July right there.
Well, like I said, I wanted to start off with a bang, pun intended. The funny thing is I at one point in time I attended the great University of Massachusetts in Amherst, no H. And Bill Pullman was the commencement speaker. And my theory was he should have just done that speech, having nothing to do with college or graduation or anything like that. Just go up and make that speech, and you know what? I bet you that stadium would have erupted.
Oh, no question about it. You would have had people saluting. You would have had Randy Quaid taking his helmet, shoving it in the air, and just going, yeah! Robert Loggia down and giving that nod of approval at the bottom of the stairs over there where he was up on the dais when he was giving that speech. Independence Day is a classic, and again, we want to echo, my esteemed colleague's sentiments of wishing everybody that's listening a very, very happy 4th of July. Definitely an honor, regardless of what side of the coin you sit on. It's a privilege and a blessing to be living in a democracy. it makes us all remember those that fought, that gave their lives to make sure that we do live in freedom. And this is a day that we have to reflect on that. We have Memorial Day, obviously, we have Veterans Day, but every day is an appreciation for the brave men and women who fight our battles every single day. And we can't thank them enough, and we can't give them enough gratitude. But one thing about Independence Day is you can always watch that speech, and it can always bring you out of any mood you could possibly be in. So great stuff, really great stuff. I think it sets the tone very well for tonight's show.
No, and I think I couldn't have said it any better myself. So, in honor of it being the 4th of July, our show tonight, Mike and I will read from our high school textbooks about the Revolutionary War and the American War and all that stuff. So, tune in, and I hope you guys don't fall asleep. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually going to have a pretty fun. We're going to have a fun show today. We're going to talk, obviously, about Julian Edelman. We just heard the news yesterday that the suspension was upheld. We're also going to kind of dive into running backs and kind of take a look at the depth chart and see, and these two situations kind of go a little hand in hand, and we'll kind of see who we think's going to, be the stud. We later in the show we're going to be joined by Andrew Erickson. He's our resident FPC Fantasy Football expert, and we'll talk a little Patriots fantasy football. So for all you fantasy football nuts out there, keep your ears open. Before we jump into the first topic, I do want to let everyone know that we will, of course, be taking phone calls. You can always give us a call at 347-850-1120. A couple questions I want you guys to think about, as you're listening to the show tonight. First, we kind of mentioned it. To start the show, we're going to talk about Julian Edelman. I just put up a poll on the FPC_Patriots Twitter handle. It is asking you who will step up in Edelman's absence. We're going to try to figure that out. Also, something more specific with the running backs is, will Sony Michel make an immediate impact on this team? And one final question to ponder throughout the evening, and this is a little off the trail, is what is the best line from Independence Day? And it's a movie that is ripe with plenty of memorable lines. So hopefully we will get to the bottom of that tonight. So everyone, I hope you guys enjoy. Again, you can give us a call. We're going to probably open the phone lines up a little bit later in the show, but it's going to be 347-850-1120. You can always tweet at myself. It's at IGLEN31, or my co-host. His name is Mike Debate, and his Twitter handle is at MDABATEFPC. All right, Mike. Let's get into the big news of the day, and that is, of course, Julian Edelman. And, just as we probably predicted, the pre-holiday evening news dump occurred, and we heard of several suspensions, and of course the Edelman appeal was officially denied, so he will be sitting out the first 4 games of the season. Mike, are you surprised? Are you a little shocked? We thought maybe he might have had a good defense, but...
Well, in terms of being shocked, I wasn't shocked, but I was really more surprised by a report that I read today rather than what I heard yesterday. Basically, it came down to the fact that, yes, Julian Edelman's appeal was denied. And when you take a look at the history that the league has with the Patriots, the league doesn't have a real big history of overturning a lot of Patriot suspensions. Yes, there was the Alan Branch situation. That was a clear violation of his rights, and he got that overturned. But, we take a look at Tom Brady, and now we take a look at Julian Edelman, and unfortunately it seems to be that is the path that is usually followed by the league, and I'm sorry to say that, but it is a fact. What really surprised me, Ian, was when I found out that this report indicated that Julian Edelman's appeal of the 4-game suspension did not include any mention of the fact that this was a quote-unquote unidentified substance. And right with Independence Day, an unidentified flying object, unidentified substance was found within Julian Edelman, like how you like the alliteration.
I like it.
I tried to bring it together.
It's perfect. It was perfect. I couldn't have done it any better myself.
But this unknown substance, according to Ben Volen of the Boston Globe, he says, per a league source, Edelman never argued in his appeal about taking an unknown substance. It was all about paperwork. So one would be led to believe that they filed the appeal based on either paperwork injunction or some sort of missed paper trail that was the result of that was basically the reason why he chose to appeal the decision. It's interesting on the choice of the Edelman camp to exclude the questions surrounding the substance for which he's being sanctioned. I guess I can understand a little bit as to why he did so. It is very difficult to win an appeal of a PED suspension, but it leads me to believe that this fight actually may not be over, and a lot of people are going to roll their eyes on that, and they're going to go, oh, God, but it might not be. Is this a situation where that unnamed substance or that unidentified substance could possibly be part of a larger fight for that? Tommy Curran of NBC Sports Boston hinted at this yesterday and said that there was a possibility that the wide receiver isn't done fighting. If that's the case, maybe this is a strategic part of Edelman's appeal not to include that language and to move on and to maybe fight that. But bottom line is, I think the chances of him sitting out the first 4 games of the season are a lot higher now than they were before, and I think almost a mathematical certainty at this point. It looks like we're going to be without him for the first 4 games of the season. And over the last couple of weeks, we've really gone through this. It may not be the worst thing in the world if he does sit this time out, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. That report surprised me a little bit that there was no mention of the unknown substance being in there, almost as if either it was a moot point or they're saving that point for a counterpunch. So, I don't know. I mean, what was your take on that? Did you see that report, first of all, by Volan and then reiterated by Tom Curran, or do you have a take on that in terms of how that's going to go or what your opinion is?
Actually, no, I did not see those reports. Initially, and this is actually the original report from Ian Rappaport following the denial of the appeal. I'm going to play this, and then I'll give you my thoughts because you brought up some really good points.
Well, there's been several suspensions from the NFL today. Obviously, Julian Edelman, the latest and the biggest. His appeal officially denied, according to a source informed of this situation. That means he's going to be out the first 4 games of 2018 with a PED suspension. Now, this was a suspension that came from failing a drug test, really the only one that Edelman has failed throughout his career, but still failing a drug test as he was trying to recover from a torn ACL, something that robbed him of all of his 2017 season. Edelman did have a strong, he believed, appeal, including for 2 reasons. One, that the substance he was actually tested positive for was not immediately identified. Then he believed there were also some concerns about how the NFL handled his sample. In the end, the arbitrator in this instance did not believe either of those, officially knocking Edelman out for the first 4 games.
So it's interesting. Like I said, I'm glad you brought up your point before. Even Ian Rappaport, this was from yesterday afternoon, so I'm assuming that this was before the reports surfaced that it was solely based on the paperwork aspect of it. If Edelman is going to take this fight further, I mean, it's interesting that he would leave that part of the strategy out, perhaps. Like if it was specifically denied in the original appeal, maybe it's harder to overturn, but, maybe they can present that as a bit of new evidence in a way. But, like you, I mean, I kind of feel the same way that he's going to end up sitting out these 4 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they just look at the situation as like, look, you're going to be 32 years old. You're coming off a torn ACL, missing the first 4 games. We saw what happened with Zeke Elliott and how he continued to fight throughout the season, and it really messed with his season and the Cowboys. Now, I'm not going to say that that's the same exact thing that's going to happen. However, it might just be best for him to sit out in October and come back, stronger, in terms of recovering from the knee injury. And, I think the Patriots, obviously, all we have to do is look to last season, and we can see that they've been able to withstand, a bit of, injury concerns with Edelman, because obviously he missed the entire season, and they went all the way to the Super Bowl. So I actually I teased this a little bit for some people that were in a Twitter conversation, but we actually have a FPC exclusive. We actually have the some audio from the actual Edelman appeal. Do you want to hear it, Mike? Are you interested? I mean, do you want?
Absolutely.
Do you want me to?
I mean,
do you really want me to play it?
This is blockbuster news. Of course, I want you to play it. This is amazing stuff.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to affect other people. I mean, I don't know if this is really just going to blow up, if it's going to hurt. Actually, I think this will help Edelman's case.
Well, I would think so. And, absolutely. And we always have a responsibility to the people to report everything that we know and to give them all the information on a given subject and make sure that they can make an informed decision. That's what we're all about here, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And excellent work. Excellent work.
No, I think you've convinced me. So according to my source, there's two voices on this audio. The first being, I believe, Julian Edelman, and the second is actually Roger Goodell. I know they said that arbitrator was there, but I'm pretty sure this is Goodell. So I'll let you guys be the judge.
I know there is much we can learn from each other if we can negotiate a truce. We can find a way to coexist. Can there be a peace between us? What is it you want us to do?
Yeah, that was definitely Roger Goodell. Now that I listened to that again, so
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Wow, I'll tell you, I am absolutely blown away by this. This is
well,
absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. It's groundbreaking.
Yeah, it is absolutely groundbreaking. First of all, Commissioner Goodell sounds like he really needs a case of Finatine mist pretty badly. Definitely got something asthmatic going on with the voice there. I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, I know it's hot and humid up here in the Northeast, but come on, you got to get that taken care of. I mean, speaking voice is a little bit, it's rough. He's got to look into that. Maybe some green tea with ginseng and honey might be able to help that out. I think it proves that the commissioner just wants to see the New England Patriots die. I think that's oh man, I'll tell you, boy, this is a real blow for Patriots Nation. Really disappointed. I can't help but remember where I might have heard audio similar to this before, but I've heard it somewhere before. I just can't put my finger on it. It's going to drive me nuts all night, but yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah.
Well, are you my source, Mike? Are you the one feeding me that audio? Because that would make sense if you heard it before then.
I'm a man of many talents and many hidden issues, my friend. So you never, ever know what could possibly be behind that source. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you any more. I'm not going to give you any less. Just going to say you never know what could happen here on the Press Patriots Podcast. It's definitely interesting.
Well, like I said, I mean, hopefully this helps Edelman. No, in all seriousness, though, any
excuse that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Any excuse that we can get to interject Independence Day lines to our conversation tonight, I'm all for it. I mean, throw anything in there that you want, my friend. Just empty the cupboard, put it all in there. Anytime I get to hear Bill Pullman on the other end of the line, it's great stuff. So that's yeah.
Well, like I said, I mean, I can't imagine the actual appeal was too different from that actual conversation. So it's not that much of an exaggeration.
Yeah, I think I would say an accurate dramatization would be the best way for me to describe what we just heard.
It's like those Lifetime murder mystery shows that have the dramatic actors that act out all the crazy scenes and all that stuff. It's just like that. That's what I imagine.
Right.
But anyways, in all seriousness, let's get back to business here because we're talking about Patriots wide receivers. In the sense that, okay, Julian Edelman is going to be gone for 4 games, and no longer do you have Dion Lewis, no longer do you have Danny Amendola. Who, in your opinion, or at least who do you think has, one, the biggest opportunity when it comes to Edelman being out of the lineup, and 2, who do you think is going to, I guess, grab that opportunity and run with it? Because, I mean, there's a bunch of, we have some new faces on this team, Jordan Matthews, Cordarrelle Patterson, Kenny Britt's coming back, Braxton Berrios, the rookie. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys there that can really shoulder the load. Now, they're not going to, do exactly what Edelman does. I mean, when he was healthy, he caught 98 passes for, 1,106 yards, and you're not going to replicate that type of production by one player. But who do you think is going to be the guy that steps up for the Patriots?
Well, in the immediate 4 games that Edelman's going to be out, I'm going to have my eye on 2 particular guys, and there are going to be a lot of guys that have opportunities. But to me, the guys that are going to help to soften the blow, first one is going to be Chris Hogan. Hogan's going to be the most experienced wide receiver who's going to be on the 53-man roster on opening day, assuming Edelman's suspension upholds, which it's been denied by the league. Let's face it, it's probably going to. I mean, if he chooses to fight this, he's facing an uphill battle, but you never know. I mean, you absolutely never know. So there's still a spark of hope that he might be able to play. Hogan's going to see plenty of action over the first 4 weeks of the season and beyond. There's no question about it. He's one of Tom Brady's most valuable receivers. He's shown time and time again he's got very good chemistry with Tom. He can be a productive player, able to attack the intermediate areas of the field that Edelman has been known to attack. He, I think, will be the Patriots' number 1 wide receiver while Julian Edelman is out. The other guy is Jordan Matthews. And Matthews is a newcomer to the Patriots, but he's a quick learner by all intents and purposes. Everywhere he's been, he seems to catch on to systems very quickly. I love the pickup when they picked up Jordan Matthews. He's 6'3", so he's much bigger than Edelman. But he's got a lot of experience playing in the slot and on the perimeter. From that point of view, I think he's going to be a very good replacement for Edelman here. Julian also winds up all over the formation. He creates the best possible mismatches across the board. I think Matthews has a chance to do that, but he's going to have to prove himself that he's capable of filling that role over the next couple of months, especially in training camp. Keep a very sharp eye on Jordan Matthews in training camp. If his past productivity is any indication, I think he's going to be able to do it. But, again, we've seen a lot of guys come in here that haven't been able to, quote-unquote, cut the mustard. I think Jordan Matthews has a really good shot at being able to do that. But Edelman leaves big shoes to fill. So those are the guys that I'm going to look at that are really going to, in my opinion, be the guys that are going to help soften the blow as we move forward toward the season.
No, and so far the fans out there agree with you because I posted that poll on the official FPC Patriots Twitter account. It's FPC_Patriots asking who will step up, and 41% have Chris Hogan. So obviously, if you're out there listening, go over and vote. Let us know. Send a comment our way and let us know what you think, and we will read them out. But no, I have to agree with you. I think Chris Hogan is, the obvious choice for a reason. He has been extremely productive when healthy in this lineup, and with the absence of a guy like Amendola and Brandon Cooks, and obviously now Edelman for at least just the 4 games, he's going to have to step up, especially considering that the you have a pretty tough schedule to start the season. You have 2 road games. You have a road game or a home game against the Dolphins, and of course you have games against the Lions. You have games against Jaguars and Texans at home to start the season. So you're playing some pretty good defenses, and you're going to need guys that are going to be reliable. I am right there with you, though, when it comes to Jordan Matthews. I am chomping at the bit, so to speak, to just see how he does. I'm not going to sit here and say he's a lock to be a super productive receiver. I'm incredibly intrigued by his talent, by his, by all accounts, he is a smart football player, really in that mold that the Patriots prefer. So I think training camp, at this point, we're just a few weeks away from training camp, so we're going to get a little bit more of an idea of, how this depth chart is going to eventually shake out and who's going to kind of make their way into the lineup, especially with Edelman giving up those 4 games. And of course, we talked about it a little bit last week, when we were kind of waiting for the verdict of the appeal, and that was Braxton Berrios, who we both think is kind of a bubble player. This team is so deep at receiver; it's hard to really find a place for him to fit on this, roster. But with Edelman out for 4 weeks, this could be a chance for them to get an extra look. And you never know. Maybe he gets into a game and all you really need to do is seize that moment that you're in, and you figure out things as you go. So, I think, like you, I expected this outcome, and I really don't think it's going to change. He's going to be out for 4 games, and that's that. I mean, at this point, I expect it, but I'm not too concerned. I feel like the Patriots are going to be able to use the depth that they have, and we didn't even mention Cordarrelle Patterson, and who knows if Malcolm Mitchell is going to be out there. I don't think either of us really thought of that.
Absolutely.
So, I think they're in a good position, and I think this is, we're obviously rooting for Jules to get back, and it's going to be fun when he does get back. When he rolls in to Week 5 against the Indianapolis Colts of all people. But I imagine him stomping down the door of Gillette Stadium and.
Hello, boys! I'm back!
Just like that. And as soon as he comes back, I think he's going to be stronger, healthier. I think he's going to be ready to go. And, I think we may have talked about this before, but it wouldn't even surprise me if he ends up, at the end of the day, leading the Patriots in receiving, despite missing 4 games. Because that's how good he is, and that's how important he is to the Patriots offense. However, they are built to withstand it, especially in an early season stretch where, we've seen it before. They could go 2-2 and be just fine. So,
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and anybody that follows the Patriots or covers them the way we do, that Julian Edelman always strives to play the game the right way. I mean, people are going to roll their eyes that aren't Patriots fans, but let's face it, our bread and butter audience here are Pats fans, and even those that are kind of perimeter fans can, I think, at least appreciate the energy and the effort that Julian Edelman brings to the table every single night, regardless of the failed drug test or the suspension that's looming. I don't think this should tarnish his legacy one bit. And that's the whole thing in a nutshell with Edelman, is that, we feel for Julian right now, I think, is the fact that I think he just wants to get back on the field so badly that, this is going to only serve to motivate him even more and really, really light a fire under him with a guy that already plays with a lot of heart, a lot of fire, a lot of intensity. As the great Gorilla Monsoon, the late great Gorilla Monsoon once said, intestinal fortitude. That's Julian Edelman, folks. He's a guy that will constantly bring it every single night, every single play. He'll get knocked down, he'll pop right back up, and he'll get right back in there. And he's that type of a player. So even if these 4 games do stick, which it looks like they're going to, it's only going to backbuild and add more motivation in him. So it's funny that you play the Randy Quaid quote from Independence Day. Hello, boys, I'm back. Yeah,
I told you,
really picture him.
Movie has plenty of them.
Exactly. I can picture him running around the field going, in the words of my generation, up yours, and really having a real heavy wide, contributing game that day. And let's not forget that they're facing Colts, so there's going to be a little bit of added motivation there. You're going to want. I think Josh is going to be a little motivated to run off the score that day. Although we have some of our Colts brethren that may argue differently, but they're playing in Foxborough, so it's going to be a fun one. I'm going to have it circled on my calendar, no question about it.
Oh, absolutely. And as we both know, the last time a Patriots player was suspended for first 4 games of the season, it worked out pretty well for them.
It absolutely did.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, different circumstances, of course. Tom Brady did nothing wrong to deserve his suspension, but that's neither here nor there. We will discuss that some other point in time, I'm sure. It'll always come up, but yeah. So I mean, I think we're both kind of feeling, got the same vibe that, yeah, it's unfortunate that we're gonna, miss Jules for the first 4 games, but this gives opportunities to other guys, and we were focusing a lot on the receivers when, in reality, some of this help could come from the running backs because, as we know, the running backs for the Patriots, it's they're usually jacks of all trades. They can either run, catch, block. They can kind of do it all. And of course, we must preface this with the fact that Dion Lewis is obviously no longer here. He was the lead runner last year. this is after a year where they lost LeGarrette Blount, who obviously went to Philadelphia and is now with the Lions, who they will face in Week 3. So, the focus of this show today, before the Edelman suspension was obviously confirmed, we were going to kind of look at the depth chart of the running backs, and see kind of who we got, who may or may not step up and all that. And so this kind of works out well because with Edelman going down, it's not necessarily going to be a receiver that, picks up the slack. We could see Rex Burkhead pick up some of that slack, catching passes out of the backfield. We could see James White, of course, is always, knows where to be in the right place at the right time. And, one of the early questions when we started the show was asking about Sony Michel and whether or not he was going to be able to make an immediate impact. So, first off, we feel good about the wide receiver group because they're incredibly deep. And, even with Malcolm Mitchell, we don't really know what he's doing. And even with Julian Edelman missing the first 4 games, barring any other major injuries, you feel pretty comfortable with the group going forward, especially obviously with Rob Gronkowski and, of course, Tom Brady throwing the football. However, I kind of get the same feeling about the running back group because I look at it as this group, you don't really know much about it. I mean, hold on, let me take that back. Of course, you know about James White, Rex Burkhead, we do know, but at the same time, he missed a lot of games last year. And, I believe 6 in the regular season, and he was pretty ineffective in the playoffs. So do we really know what he is yet? The Patriots wanted to re-sign him, so they re-signed him. So we're glad he's back, and, he showed real great flashes of having a good connection with Tom Brady. Who do you think is really going to step up and seize that, I don't want to say lead running back role, but who do you think is going to be the Dion Lewis of this year, and how do you feel about this running back depth chart overall?
Well, quite honestly, I think it's going to be the rookie. I think Sony Michel is going to be able to step up, and I think he's really going to be able to be that Dion Lewis-type player. Now, is he going to replicate exactly what Lewis gave them last year? Probably not. That's a tall task, and I think that's a lot to ask any wide receiver, any running back. But Sony Michel is a playmaker first and a running back second. And he was drafted to be a big play creator. He does have the potential to be like that all-purpose league running back in future that you saw Lewis kind of be able to become, but I don't think they've really had that type of all-purpose back that can do it all, that can power run, that can run for finesse. I think the last one they had was really Corey Dillon. And I think that, it's been a long time since they've had that type of explosive back that Michel is able to bring to the table. He's got that ability to do that. I think this year what his primary goal is going to be to help replace Dion Lewis and what he brought to the table. Dion Lewis gave you 120 rushing attempts last year, 32 receptions, so he could catch the ball out of the backfield. This is a guy that he came from meaning Sony Michel. He came from a program where he shared playing time. So I think he'll be okay. I think the guys that he's going to end up splitting the playing time with are going to be Rex Burkhead and James White. I think that's going to be the 3-man crew that you're going to see most often in the Patriots' offensive backfield. White is going to be, he's definitely going to be there as well. Burkhead, we'll get into them in a minute. But to me, to answer your question, I think Michel is going to be the guy that ends up emerging as that feature back in the Patriots' offense. And I think he can carry the load. It's going to be interesting to see how his knee holds up. Obviously there's injury concerns. I think that's one of the big reasons why he dropped to the latter part of the first round. Michel's someone I had my eye on for a long time when I did initial Patriots draft projections right after the Super Bowl. I think the week after the Super Bowl in early February, Michel was one of the guys I had the Patriots targeting simply because he's just that type of back that Bill Belichick loves. And it didn't surprise me to see them take him. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The only question mark on Michel really is whether or not his knee can hold up. He's got the work ethic, and he's certainly got the talent. But whether or not the injury rears its ugly head, let's hope not. I would like to think that that won't happen. You would hope that the Patriots know a little bit more than we do when it comes to that. But you've seen guys come in here before that were injury prone that they tried to sort of help along. I think Dominique Easley is one guy that comes to mind that really had all the talent in the world, dropped because of injury concerns, and then never really went on to the success that really deserved because of those injuries. So I'm hoping this is going to be different, but I think Michel is going to be the guy.
No, I think you make a great point that he's not going to be relied upon to have to be the lead back or carry any significant load, because you do have other guys there. We mentioned James White, we mentioned Rex Burkhead. You have, I'm assuming either one of Jeremy Hill or Mike Gillislee. I don't think both make it. I think perhaps maybe one. I mean, it's possible that neither of them ultimately are on this team, but. And then, of course, Brandon Bolden, the greatest Patriot ever to play, according to one person that we know. So, and I'm sure, I know he's out there listening, so I'm sure we'll get a, nice response from that. Or if not, he will pick us up on the stream. but yeah, so I mean, I think they're.
Our buddy Murph is a wise man.
Yes. Yes, he knows his running backs, and Brandon Bolden, watch out for him. But no, I like that you brought up Corey Dillon, because maybe you would think of LeGarrette Blount being that closest to Corey Dillon, but really he was this oddly athletic, bigger running back. So he didn't really have that. At times he was able. We've seen him carry 6 runners at a time, but he wasn't that traditional. Head down, smash through, powerful running back that Michel could be. So I think that's intriguing, and it's going to be fun to see how he develops. And of course, we know this coaching staff with Josh McDaniels and of course Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, under center, they're gonna put him in the right position to succeed. And I think not having to just really carry the load. Now, who knows? Maybe down later in the season it becomes a necessity, or he's a guy that gets it right away. You never know. Some of these guys really just come in and they're made for the NFL, and he could seize that role right off the bat. And I think that's the most intriguing thing, and I think probably the biggest storyline, heading into training camp. And we'll dive more into those storylines as the weeks go on and really dissect them. But to have a guy, a running back drafted in the first round, something the Patriots, just don't do. It's intriguing, and I think it really has made the loss of Dion Lewis, which I think we all kind of assumed he was going to be gone after this season, because we just you're not going to be able to match the type of money that was going to get thrown at him. And Tennessee, he's going to be good in Tennessee, and we'll see him probably in the playoffs again. Tennessee has a good team, so it's just the possibilities are very intriguing. And if he, like you said, if he stays healthy, if the knee holds up, and if he really adapts and learns the NFL way of how to play and how to be a running back in the NFL, I think he could really surprise some people. And the calls for Belichick making the right call yet again, because I remember pre-draft we were talking, okay, offensive line, defensive line, that seems like what they're going to do for the first 2 picks, and of course we were absolutely wrong. Although I will give you credit, you did bring up Sony Michel prior to the draft, so I do want to give you a little round of applause there, and I'm glad you gave yourself.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you gave yourself a little cheap pop there.
Well, I kind of wanted to a little bit, but in all fairness, I mean, I will say what's right, and I'll say what's unright. I did have Michel going in the second round. I didn't have the Patriots drafting him in the first, so that was a bit of a surprise to me. But I mean, he really does fit the mold of the type of the Bill Belichick type of running back, and that's one of the things that I remember watching in some of the film that I was watching on him in Georgia. He's got that ability, that breaking ability, like you said, that, put your head down, smash mouth type, but also a guy that can run finesse as well. So he really does become the total package in terms of what they look for in a running back, more so than what Blount had. And listen, I loved LeGarrette Blount when he was here. I thought he was a workhorse. He was a guy that just, had an uncanny ability to power his way into the end zone and played very well for New England. His contributions were excellent. But in terms of being a complete running back, I think Michelle reminds me more of Corey Dillon than he does LeGarrette Blount. And I think you can make even a more apt comparison to a Dion Lewis than you could LeGarrette Blount at this point. Interesting, some of the things that you brought up. Jeremy Hill is really, I think, an intriguing pickup for the Pats. This is a guy who scored 29 touchdowns in his first 3 seasons, rushed for over 2,700 yards, but he hasn't been the yard gainer, for lack of a better term, that we've come to accustomed with those stats for the last couple of years. Really, I think since his rookie season in 2014, he really hasn't been the type of guy that's averaged a number of yards per carry. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him on the bubble. I have him as being one of those guys on the bubble, like you said. Gillisley as well seems to have found his way into the Belichick doghouse. I don't know if maybe that was just last year or if that's something that could carry over into this year. A lot of people have him being a target for being cut. Let's not forget Ralph Webb either. Ralph Webb is an undrafted rookie free agent. He overachieved at Vanderbilt, and the Patriots were willing to give him guaranteed money as an undrafted rookie free agent to come in here. So some people, I've heard some comparisons, our very own Al Bent that writes for Upper Full Press compared him to Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. And there are some comparisons there. If you take a look at some of the film, it's a pretty apt comparison, I think, and a very astute observation. It could be. I think Webb may be more of like a practice squad candidate at this point, but you never know. Like you said, some of these guys come in, they're built for the NFL. And if they're built for the NFL and they take to the game very well, then just because they're a rookie, it's not an excuse just to sit them on the bench just because they don't have experience. They can get the job done. Bill's going to play it.
Well, and that's funny. We all love the law firm, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, Mr. No Fumble until he left, and obviously played with actually inflated footballs. I think that was the conspiracy theory that was going around that Ben Jarvis Green Ellis all of a sudden started fumbling when he left the Patriots. But if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to stick on to. Yeah, I know, right? Like I said, we don't unfortunately, we only have 2-hour blocks on this program, so we can't dive into that, especially when we have a guest on the line. And we're going to continue this discussion on Patriots wide receivers and running backs with our full press coverage fantasy expert, Mr. Andrew Erickson. And I just want to welcome Andrew into the show. You're on with Ian and Mike. How you doing, Andrew?
What's up, guys? I'm happy to be on. Happy 4th of July.
Yes, happy 4th to you too. It's a wonderful holiday.
Absolutely, happy 4th.
Yes, for sure.
Thanks for coming on.
Filled with hamburgers and hot dogs. I know I tuned in for that hot dog eating contest, which I was actually surprised how entertaining it actually was. But instead of munching on hot dogs, let's get into talking about some of the fantasy stuff for the Patriots. We'll start out kind of looking at the wide receivers. So for me, the big thing, and you guys kind of touched upon this earlier in the show, I believe, is Edelman's suspension. So he's missing the first 4 games. So his value has dipped a little bit, in mock drafts. You can get him a little bit later. He was already kind of going late as it was because of his coming off an injury. He's an older player. But I still think he's a guy that when he does come back, he has a very solid role within the offense. And he has chemistry with Brady that not many players can really say that they've ever had. They have a special bond. And even when it seemed like when, Brady didn't have Edelman, it would kind of be, Amendola, would kind of step up into that role where, he would kind of fill in what Edelman was doing, especially what we saw in the playoffs. So I do think Edelman will be productive when he comes back. But in the meantime, for the first 4 weeks, I'm looking at guys like, I think Chris Hogan will be a guy to target on the outside for sure. Jordan Matthews is another guy that comes to mind that has succeeded in the slot before, even though he's a little bit of a bigger wide receiver, not the prototypical, smaller white, wide receiver that the Patriots fans have kind of all come to know and love. But those profiled players kind of fall under guys like Braxton Berrios and Riley McCarron, who's actually, who took, first team snaps at OTAs. So those are a couple guys I'm looking at to target kind of in my fantasy drafts for the Patriots receivers.
Well, let me ask you, because I kind of feel that there's a chance that even with missing the 4 games, that Edelman can come back and lead this team in receiving. Therefore, if you're picking him in fantasy drafts, it might even be worth, maybe making a little bit of a reach for him because, he can catch passes in bunches. And you brought up a great point that, especially with guys like Danny Amendola gone, there is no one on this team that has that connection with him, in terms of receivers. So, I feel like he could really come back and, really just hit the ground running and, accumulate a lot of receptions week per week. And obviously, which would bring smiles to PPR players across the country. So do you think that's possible? Do you think that's well within despite his age, within his abilities?
Yeah, I definitely think it's in the realm of possibilities, especially looking at the other guys that could possibly, compete with him for that. So obviously Gronkowski, the tight end position, not technically a receiver or a wide receiver, but still, a big weapon in the offense. Gronk obviously misses time pretty consistently, unfortunately. So there's a chance that he could miss some time this year. Obviously he's still the number 1, total offensive option for Brady. But then looking at the receivers, like I mentioned, Chris Hogan, came out of the gates, besides the first game against the Chiefs, he came out of the gates, on fire. He was scoring touchdowns left and right, and then he got hurt and kind of fell off. And there's no more Brandon Cooks. So another explosive playmaker who had 1,000 yards last year is gone. So there's I'm not sure that everyone's registering how many targets are really missing, and those targets have to go to someone. So I definitely think that Edelman does have a chance, especially in the role he has as a move the chains kind of wide receiver. He could definitely, I could see him leading the team in receiving.
No, and I think that's the hope of most Patriots fans, because I think they're aching just to see him out on the field, obviously after missing all of last season. But as Mike and I talked about before you came on, it was, we feel that this team is plenty deep enough to certainly weather the storm, which, as great as Edelman is, given the fact that you still have Brady behind center and a bunch of other really good players around him, I think they're going to be just fine. And getting Edelman back is going to be a little bit icing on the cake. We're talking with Andrew Erickson right now. He is our resident fantasy expert. You can, if you want to check him out on Twitter, you can follow him. It's at Andrew Erickson _. And he actually just did he had his fantasy podcast for us last night. So before we jump into the running backs, you want to give the listeners out there a little summary of what you talked about and what they can look forward to when they go and check it out on our website.
Yeah. So last night I recorded the podcast with a guest, Ryan Whitfield. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan Whitfield NE. So he works for a couple different websites, writing fantasy stuff. So I had him on the show, and we basically talked about the, potential of specific players finishing in the top 5 at their respective positions, and we looked at players that, were being drafted outside the top 5. So, for example, at the running back position, the consensus top 5 across the board, with ADPs is in no order, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, and then Alvin Kamara is basically the consensus top 5. So basically we were looking at, outside of these top 5 guys, looking at everybody else, who do we think has the best shot of getting into that top 5 and finishing as a top 5, fantasy player at that position. So I definitely think you go check it out. I think it's really we're really prospecting players that we really think can hit and be difference makers in your leagues. A lot of times it seems like we focus a little bit too much on, the sleepers, the really late picks, the value picks, whereas, yes, they can be good, but at the end of the day, like last year, if you had Todd Gurley, it doesn't matter how many sleepers your opponent has. If you had Todd Gurley last year, you were winning your league. Most likely you were going to be in good shape. But yeah, definitely go check it out.
Well, that's great, and it's going to, if you guys want to look for it, we're going to have the video up on YouTube soon. There's a video that goes with it. You get to watch Andrew talk, which I'm sure everyone loves. And you can also search for it on iTunes. You can search for Full Press NFL, and of course on YouTube it's Full Press coverage. So check it out and make sure to subscribe and write reviews and rate us, because we like to be reassured that we're doing a pretty okay job. So the other thing that we talked about, and this is kind of right in this whole wheelhouse of trying to figure out who's going to replace Edelman's production, is the Patriots running backs. And I know Mike and I both kind of agree, and we're both very intrigued with the idea of Sony Michel being a key contributor. Now, being a contributor in real football versus fantasy football is different. How do you see him being? Do you see him being any value, and what do you project his production may be like for the Patriots coming up in this season?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a Sony Michel fan. I think that he's a player that the Patriots have never really had at the running back position. I don't think that they've really ever had a dynamic back, a more high-profile back than Sony Michel. Looking at their history, obviously the last time they took a first-round running back was Lawrence Maroney, and we kind of left a little sour taste in our mouths. But Michel seems kind of like a different running back in terms of his skill set. Great in pass protection, which is something that's really important, and he's really explosive. That's a big thing, and I think that's part of what his role will be in the Patriots offense, is a player that they will design plays for, similar to with Brandon Cooks. Obviously, you see the loss of Cooks, and you're like, oh, there's a big gap at wide receiver, but that's not really what Cooks was. Cooks was a big play threat. He was a guy who could make big plays down the field. He was a guy that they would run, reverses, jet sweeps. And then in that Super Bowl when he did that stupid play when he tried to jump over the defender and
for no reason. God.
Yeah, so
just no reason.
Who knows? Maybe Belichick on that play was like, all right, getting traded. I've decided we need guys that can run jet sweeps. We need guys that can run jet sweeps correctly and not try to jump over guys when you're like 5'10", and it's just like, okay. But anyway, so that's a role I think that Michel could play, and it all depends on, obviously his usage, which is something that in the Patriots offense is hard to predict. But the thing with the Patriots offense is people tend to shy away from them, in fantasy because they're, you're never going to know who's going to get the ball. You're never going to know about usage. But at the same time, they always produce running backs that do fantasy, or they are fantasy relevant, and they are fantasy producers. You look at the last 2 years, with a lot of different teams, there was only there's only a handful of teams that have had top 12 running back finishers the past 2 years. And, for the most part, those are your Elliott's, McCoy, Bell, Melvin Gordon, Ingram, Kamara. So those big, high-profile names. But then you have LeGarrette Blount 2 years ago and Deion Lewis. Both finishes, prototypical RB1. So there's definitely RB1 upside with Sony Michel at the running back position if he does get, a certain amount of usage. Obviously, there's a lot of guys back there. Rex Burkhead, James White, I think are the main two. Gillislee and Hill, it seems like they're probably going to only keep one of those guys because they have similar roles, Brandon Bolden. And then I know you guys had talked about Ralph Webb right as I kind of hopped on, and he's still kind of, in the little bit of the lower, not necessarily expecting a lot from him in year one. But if Sony Michel can kind of find himself in that Deion Lewis role, as the red zone runner, which is what we saw from Deion Lewis last year, he could be really effective. Michel is a pass-catching back. I think he's a better pass-catching back than Burkhead is. And I think that, something to remember is, who's the player that in the playoff practice that hit his helmet against Tom Brady's finger? That was Rex Burkhead.
That's right.
So I think that's something, you want to just keep in the back pocket because I guarantee Brady remembers that. So I think that really the only thing that can hold Sony Michel back, I do think that he's going to be that lead running back for the Patriots, but the caveat is if he fumbles. It's a very, the Patriots have been very traditional in their approach, especially with Belichick, and the doghouse is unforgiving running backs that fumble, and we saw with Gillislee last year. He started out really well, fumbled, was inactive. At the end of the season after he scored 3 touchdowns week 1, and you thought, oh well, I got LeGarrette Blount 2.0. So that is a concern with Michel, for sure, because he did have fumbling issues in college, which is a little reason why they would kind of draft a guy like him then, because the way I look at it is they must have really loved everything else about him, or else they wouldn't have taken a guy that has fumbling issues.
Well, I think it's curious too, and I know actually I don't want to speak for Mike, but Mike, didn't you run out and go grab a Gillislee jersey right after week 1? Weren't you all about that? I'm pretty sure you were sending me photos, and then quickly thereafter you're like, don't show these anymore.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I was ready to wave the flag. But, no, I mean, in all honesty, I think Andrew, you bring up a really, really good point on the fumbling issues for Sony Michel, and I'm very high on him as well. I have been really since I started watching film on him back in February, and even during the season, although he was playing for Georgia. Something about him just really struck me as the type of running back that Bill Belichick really does love. But that is an interesting point that you bring up about fumbling, because that is the one cardinal sin in the Belichick handbook that doesn't seem to be forgiven by any stretch of time. There's really no penance for that in the Patriots' way of doing business. If you continue to fumble the ball, you're going to find yourself on the bench and probably out of Foxborough pretty quickly. My question to you is actually on James White. White, I think, remains the top receiving threat at the position this year for the Patriots. He had 56 receptions for 429 yards last year. Is James White a solid fantasy pickup? We know that his contributions tend to be more, like Ian said, more of a football contributor rather than a fantasy contributor. But could he be someone that could really emerge this year as someone that fantasy owners would want to take a flyer on with the knowledge of knowing that Michel could possibly have issues hanging on to the football?
Yeah, so with James White, so obviously his role is that of, the third down back and the pass catching back. And even with Dion Lewis last year, I know we kind of see people look at Dion Lewis and like, oh, he's a pass catching back, which wasn't really the case. He did it last year to an extent, but most of the majority of the season, James White was still having the majority of the receptions on third downs. In 2017, he had 27 targets for 162 yards on 20 receptions on third downs, compared to Lewis, who had 1 reception on third downs. So the thing though to point out with White is the beginning of the season, he was involved more. So weeks 1 through 5, he had 35 targets and 30 receptions. And then weeks 6 through 17, he had 37 targets and 26 receptions. So he did have a little bit of an injury bug in between, but the Patriots did tend to lean off of him as Dion Lewis kind of emerged. I just think from a capability standpoint, I think Patriots know that Burkhead and Michel can do more than White can. From a fantasy perspective, I think that because White is a guy you can get really cheap, I think he has, obviously has some value in PPR leagues because we've seen it before with kind of these, I call them, space backs where, because all they do is catch receptions, that's a really easy way to just generate fantasy points. The comparison is, a reception or a target is worth more than a touch, or a rushing attempt, I should say, because you're more likely to get more yards, off a reception. Obviously, there's a reason, 4 yards per carry is kind of the standard for a rushing attempt, but 4 yards at reception would be, that's pretty bad. You're going to see receptions a lot higher than 4 yards a reception. So with White, I think you can take him. I like taking him with Michel or with Burkhead. If a guy goes down, you can see White's value go up. But I definitely think in PPR leagues, White definitely does have value because there are games, we've seen it, that he has big games where he just gets a lot of work in the passing game, especially within the first 4 weeks with Edelman out. So I definitely think he's worth a draft pick later in drafts because I think that as a player that can, flex out as a receiver. There could be sets where we see Burkhead, I wouldn't surprise me to see Burkhead, Michel, and White all in the same field at the same time. They all have receiving ability, can line up outside in the slot, and with Edelman missing out, there's definitely an opportunity for them to get targets.
Well, I want to once again. Oh, sorry. I was going to say I want to once again thank you for joining us to talk a little fantasy football. I'm sure we're going to be doing it a lot this season, and hopefully these guys will take your advice because you know what, I'm going to, because I haven't won anything fantasy-wise in a very, very long time. So I'm pretty sure it's been since George Bush was in office. So that's sad to me. It's been a while. Cue the Spain song, but it's it's certainly something.
I got one more thing. Actually, I want to before I leave. With Sony Michel, and this is a take I've read a couple people talking about. So we know during the off season, and the league is becoming a copycat league. A lot of times it's mostly teams copycat. Following what the Patriots do and doing what they do, drafting hybrid tight ends and things like that, running backs, running back by committee. But something that, someone I kind of drawn the narrative to was, a lot of comparisons were made to Sony Michel as to Alvin Kamara. Similar profiles and skills and explosiveness and in the way that they run the ball and the way that they're used in football. And the narrative is just like, Belichick has a pretty good relationship with Sean Payton, and they obviously, during the off season, it seems like they always have preseason games against the Saints, and they always do those joint practices. And that's what we kind of saw with Brandon Cooks. We saw them go get Brandon Cooks after Belichick had seen Cooks at Saints practices, and I remember even Cooks' rookie year, he was like, man, I'm really glad we don't play this guy in the regular season. So I don't know if Belichick has, saw Kamara in those joint practices and then saw what the Saints did with, dual running backs, kind of how productive they could be. And if he sees Sony Michel as his Alvin Kamara that he can use in a running back role, alongside a Burkhead, or, maybe Jeremy Hill becomes that Mark Ingram type. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but I wouldn't shock me if Belichick, tries to mimic the Saints offense a little bit. They obviously have an older quarterback, and perhaps they try to run the ball more because of Brady, and just to help protect Brady a little bit more.
It's actually very kind of because it's always interesting when you're really deep and subtle things that Belichick does in terms of, like you say, they've been practicing the Saints, so likely you're going to look and watch and see how they do things and realize, okay, I can do this better. And like you said, it's a copycat league, and Belichick is one of the quickest ones to realize that he can change what he's doing. He's not a stubborn guy that gets locked in his own ways. It's interesting that you brought that up, and that perhaps they see him in a mold of Alvin Kamara, and if that's the case, he's going to be one hell of a running back this year. So I'm sure we can all hope that is the case, and I think we're all happy, and I think we'll quickly forget that Edelman is gone for 4 weeks if Michel becomes a Kamara player. But
I think it's going to be. I think the Patriots will probably start out 4-0, and then it'll be like, oh well, now they're getting Edelman back. We're just going to we're going to keep the train going.
Oh, I like it. 3 straight Super Bowls appearances. Of course, we need to get back on the winning side, but it makes it all that more exciting. So once again, Andrew, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. You're obviously more than welcome to return, and we will certainly have you on. He is Andrew Erickson. You can follow him on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_. And, of course, check out the site. Look for the Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find it under the radio tab and on the side of the homepage. And, of course, you can search for it on iTunes and YouTube. So, once again, thank you, Andrew, and look forward to talking to you again.
Andrew, thanks
awesome.
much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
On.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great night. Happy 4th of July.
All right, yay.
Yes, happy 4th. Have a great night. Right. So that was Andrew Erickson, and it's always fun to talk a little fantasy football, especially now that it's July and we're getting a little bit closer, which is a good chance for me to segue real quick into, we mentioned it last week that we have partnered with Thrive Fantasy. It is a brand new daily fantasy app. Thrive Fantasy is a new daily fantasy sports app engaging the everyday fan. No longer do you need to research every player on every team in order to be successful. Thrive solely asks about top-tiered athletes while also completely changing the game flow. Thrive challenges users to choose a predetermined amount of binary player propositions, such as LeBron James over or under 25 points tonight, or Tom Brady over or under 300 passing yards. It's fun, exciting, and easy to win. So that sounds right up my alley, Mike. I like winning. So we are Patriots fans, so we're used to it.
Definitely.
So if you're interested in trying it out, you can go right to fullpresscoverage.com and look on the right of the homepage. You will see a little icon. It says sign up now for Thrive Fantasy. Just click that link, sign up, and start playing because baseball is in full swing. Another pun intended. So, yeah, I'm full of them today. Actually, that might be my last one, but you never know. I kind of like to play things on the edge. But yeah, hey, I do my best. But yeah, we're really happy to have Andrew join our show. He's absolutely going to be a valued member of this show because he will come on and talk Patriots fantasy football throughout the season.
Absolutely.
We do want to.
Yeah, I mean anybody that is a fan of fantasy football and is into that, and I only echo your sentiments on this. Andrew knows his stuff. He is as good of a fantasy mind as I've seen. He's spot on in his analysis. So when he talks, people listen. Maybe we can call him the new Hutton of fantasy football. But at this point, highly recommended, and definitely check out his takes. If you like money, you might want to check out Andrew Erickson.
I like money. Oh, tell me, what's that from? Do you know what that quote's from? I like money.
Actually, you know what? You got me stumped. Yeah, you got me stumped.
Man, I hope you've seen this movie, and anyone out there that hasn't seen it, I want you to go out as soon as this podcast is over and go watch this movie. It's Idiocracy, a Mike Judge classic. That would be Dax Shepard playing the incredibly dim-witted future man from the future, and he likes money. But I like money
and
too.
I actually have it, so I'm gonna have to check that out. You've inspired
Oh my
me.
God! Oh, it kills me because I wish I had that clip. I wish I had it. That would have been perfect. But you know what? Hey, I don't like to live with regret. So next week. But if you haven't seen it, go out and watch that movie because that is a great movie, and it's eerily. It's very scary in a sense because I don't want to give away too much. Just go watch it and then get back to me and let me know. We'll talk about it next week. We'll have a segment, 30 minutes. At this time, we do want to, if anyone out there is listening, wants to call into the show, we're going to open the phone lines here a little bit as we freestyle the rest of the way. So if you're out there, if you want to give us a call, it's 347-850-1120. You can, of course, always tweet us either at the main account, which is at FPC_Patriots, or you can tweet me. It's at IGLEN31, or you can tweet Mike at MDABATEFPC. Oh, man, I'm telling you, one of these days I'm going to screw that up, but I surprise myself.
You always deliver. You always deliver, my friend. It's right on the money as usual. If you will allow me an indulgence for just 1 minute, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a friend of ours that I feel like Donnie Brasco here. This one's a friend of mine. But he truly is a great supporter of ours and of your New England Patriots in general. And you know him on Twitter as the Turban Patriot. His name is Joss, and I know he's listening today. And I want to give a big shout out to him and thank him for all the support that he's given to all of us here, primarily myself, Ian, and everybody at Full Press. But he's been a great friend of the program and is fashioning a new slogan for the Patriots this year. Hashtag Sights on Six is something that he's definitely come up with. He's really very passionate about it. And we encourage our listeners out there, if you like the hashtag Sights on Six, if there's questions on it or whatever, or if you really like it, be sure to send us some feedback on Twitter. We would love to hear it. and I know he would as well. So big shout out to him and a big thank you to him for all the efforts he's put forth. And we hope you like that hashtag, and we want to give him all the credit for that. So thank you for allowing me that little soapbox. But I did want to give a shout out to Josh because he has been an amazing support for all of us.
No, I'm glad you did. I love it because anything that differentiates our our team from the Steelers is good by me, and I love it. So we'll push. We'll get that out there. Hopefully it'll catch fire, and we'll sure to always credit him for that. And of course, I know he's listening. I know. I mean, we have a ton of people listening. I'm sure it's thousands and thousands of people, but of course, I'm known to inflate numbers a little bit, So we'll get those official numbers out. Yeah, just slightly.
Again,
just a smidge.
Again, in the spirit of Independence Day, it's for dramatic effect.
Yeah, and we all know how dramatic that movie is. I'm actually, as soon as we're done with this show, I am going to watch it, as is my July 4th tradition. Although I did spend, a good portion of the day today pulling clips and watching some of the best scenes of the movie. Now I'm going to put it all together. So, I'm looking forward to that part. Not that I enjoy the show. I love the show. I wish we could talk forever, but the prize at the end is knowing that I will be sitting down enjoying a classic. Now, if you ask me, the second one doesn't exist, and and I will not recognize that one.
And it's funny, we were talking about this the other night, and anybody out there that wants to chime in, by all means, please do. Neither one of us have seen the sequel.
No.
And I think we did that basically for, selfish reasons. I think we didn't want to ruin our take on that. Independence Day is a movie that really does speak to my heart primarily, and I do mean this. It's the only movie that my entire family, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, we were all in New Hampshire for the 4th of July, the year that Independence Day came out, and it rained terribly that year. It was just an absolute washout, and we had nothing to do. And of course, my cousins and I were all, we're all younger at the time, and we wanted to go see that really, really badly. And so, of course, naturally, the family's like, okay, we'll take the kids to go see the movie. So the older folk didn't really want to stay behind. They all came. And that's the distinction that I always remember. Independence Day is the movie that my entire family went to. A group of, I think, of almost like 16 or 17 of us, immediate family, went to see this movie, and we all sat through it all at the same time. So that'll always hold a special place in my heart for a number of reasons. But, the other reason is the speech that you played at the beginning of the show. I think everybody loves that, and rightfully so. And I don't think we wanted to ruin that image by looking at the sequel. So, I mean, I don't know. From what I've read, I don't think we're missing much. But I don't know. Maybe there are some people out there that really, if you like it, please, let us know. Maybe we can be persuaded to check it out. Maybe that's a challenge to our listeners. If we can be persuaded to check out Resurgence. Is that what it's called, Resurgence?
Yeah, I think so. But in all honesty, someone once convinced me to watch Dumb and Dumberer, and I almost stopped watching movies that day. Like, not just that movie, like every movie ever. So I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to be convinced to go and see that movie because Independence Day, which it was a perfect. Here's the thing about it, and I feel like this is one of the reasons why it has such staying power and it's such a great movie, is that those graphics at the time are so incredible. I mean, really, that mid '90s boom when it comes to natural disaster, very, eye-popping graphics. That was the best, because now I just feel it's just way too over CGI'd, and it just doesn't really. I don't know. It just doesn't pass the. It doesn't seem right. I mean, those graphics for, Independence Day, they were fantastic. Especially at the time, and even now. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch it back, and it's funny that, when you see it now as opposed to, it's, movie's over 20 years old. I think, it's 22 years old, I think, is...
96, I believe.
Since it was released. And it's funny that you bring that up, because it really is true. If you take a look at the graphics and you take a look at the CGI, it looks very seamless. And you would think that in time that the CGI would look less and less like CGI and look more seamless. I think it's easier to pick it out now than it was back then.
Oh, yeah.
Even take a look at a movie like, I haven't had a chance to see Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom yet, but even Jurassic World a couple of years ago when it came out, the new one, you look at the CGI in that, and you take a look at the CGI from the original that came out with Sam Neill and Jeff Goldblum. And the original is amazing. I mean, to the point where, people had no idea what CGI was when that movie first came out. And people were really convinced that they had brought the dinosaurs to life. And Spielberg really kind of cultivated that. He was very coy about how it was used. He didn't wait until much after the movie was released in order to tell people that it was a computer-generated dinosaur. But, you look at the original Independence Day, and it really does hold up, I think, for that reason. There were characters in that movie that everybody could relate to. And I think that's one of the reasons why, listen, no one's going to put it up there with, The Godfather, Gone with the Wind, Shawshank Redemption, some of the finest, pieces of cinema that were ever created. But, I mean, for what it was created for, to be a true summer blockbuster, a real fun movie to watch, it's got to be up there on everybody's list of movies that people just say, you know what, when I want to just, kick back and watch something that's really just fun from start to finish, that's a movie to put in. And it's one of the most popular to be downloaded. I think I was reading an article earlier on that said that was one of the most popular downloads during the 4th of July. That, believe it or not, Jaws, 1975, and it's still going strong. And that's still one of my favorites as well. Big shout out again to one of our listeners, my dear friend Terry Bay. I know you adore Terry, and so do I. She's a great follow on Twitter, and just an awesome person. And that is one of her favorite movies. There are times where we'll just go back and forth on Twitter, just Jaws quotes, and that could last for like an hour. It's pretty cool to see how people spend their 4th of July and what they like to use to unwind, to be able to enjoy their time. But those two are absolute classics. Can't forget The Sandlot too. The Sandlot's a very big 4th of July movie too. So you gotta throw that one in.
No, and as you know me, I am a connoisseur of fine films, and I before when you mentioned Jurassic Park, obviously there's that common connection. Jeff Goldblum, a legend amongst that mid '90s film era there, and of course the sequels that have come years later. So if anyone out there is listening, you want to give your thoughts on this, whether it's Julian Edelman, whether it's Patriots running backs, whether it's great cinema of the early to late 90s, feel free to chime in. It's 347-850-1120, and we will be more than happy to talk about just about anything. And, last week we played a little game. I read some tweets, and Mike had to guess whether or not it was a troll or a journalist. So we're going to do that too in a little bit. So that should be fun. And maybe if someone calls in, we will play the game with them. We'll see. Because I think you won. I think you went 2-1 last week, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
I do believe so. Yes, it was 2-1. I was a little embarrassed to lose the one that I lost, but that was definitely interesting. Yeah, of course we the journalist that you chose, and I say that in quotation marks. I mean, he could be considered having a troll as a side job. So that's definitely a possibility. I don't know how inaccurate I was.
No, I mean, honestly, I think that's the fun of it. It's really hard to tell, and I think I got some tough ones today. Like I said, since we're still kind of really out of the season, the trolls haven't all come out of the shadows quite yet, but eventually we're going to get a whole bunch of them, and I think I'm going to be able to stump you. So hopefully those out there listening will, by the time we get rolling with this, will everyone will understand the game. We'll maybe start giving away some prizes later in the season once we got some fun quotes to go through. So
absolutely, everybody loves prizes.
I love prizes. I like to win. Going back to winning, I like winning. I like money. I like winning stuff. We'll see. But keep an eye out for that. We will certainly have a lot of fun with you guys. I mean, we like to joke around and have some fun on the show, and obviously talk Patriots football. So again, we want to really, encourage everyone out there who enjoys the show to, interact, tweet us, send us questions because we want to get you involved. I want to update you guys on the poll so far. Like I said, I sent that poll out asking who is going to step up the most for the Patriots, in Julian Edelman's absence. And just like you, the fans out there believe it's going to be Chris Hogan. So he's still in the lead with about 50% of the vote. So, and I think that's a pretty safe bet. And I think if you're going to go, you don't feel like throwing caution to the wind, I think you go with Chris Hogan. I think he's the steadying force in that lineup. And, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see who the snaps, who takes most of the snaps during training camp and who really starts to distinguish themselves when the pads get on. So, and of course in preseason games. Although, as we know, Edelman will be there for training camp and will presumably play a little bit in some of the preseason games. Of course, he is still recovering from that injury, so I guess they're still going to follow that procedure in terms of him recovering and rehabbing. So who knows how much he'll actually play. So yeah, hey Mike, you want to play a game?
Sure, always will.
All right. Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, I'm like I said, last week what I did was I would read a couple tweets, and Mike just simply has to guess whether or not it is a troll or a journalist. And like I mentioned, Mike came out on top last week. It was 2-1. And we'll see if he, perhaps does a good job this time. So without further ado. Welcome to the game. All right. See a nice... You like that nice little jingle? I figured it would spice things up
great.
A little bit.
Yeah, I gotta love that. I feel like I'm on a 70s game show. I'm looking for Richard Dawson around here. This is great.
I've actually fashioned my apartment 70s style furniture to kind of get the real ambiance and the real feeling of it all. Bell bottom pants.
You got the Merv Griffin set from Seinfeld.
Yeah. Yep.
I knew it. I knew it.
Exactly.
I knew when they said I knew when they said that they couldn't find the Merv Griffin set on Seinfeld. I knew it. I said it's in his apartment. I can guarantee it.
Oh man, no, yeah, I was the first one to snag it up, and I saw that they're throwing it away. So we will, we eventually, once we get the video capabilities, we will have that up on YouTube, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy it, and you'll see the outfits.
Oh yeah, because everybody's waiting for it.
So, without further ado, here is the first tweet I'm going to read you. And it relates to our discussion on Julian Edelman. So this person tweeted, Julian Edelman is suspended for using illegal drugs to cheat. Stop making him the victim. Now, Mike, is that a troll or a journalist?
All right, now you've done it. Now you've just given me the best drop of our existence here. That really, yeah, that
distracted you.
That's top notch. Yeah, no, that is top notch right there. I'm at a loss for words as to how much I love that drop right now. So you took the words right out of my mouth. Getting back to the game though, I'm going to go with journalist on that one. That sounds like a journalist to me.
Oh, is that your final answer?
Is that my final answer? Now he's going all Regis on me. Let me see if that's my final answer. He's probably trying to tell me that I'm wrong. No, you know what? I'm digging my heels in. I'm going to say I'm right.
All right. You sure? You positive?
I am.
All right. Let's lock him in. Okay, I don't have that sound bite, but you are wrong. That is actually a troll. But that's a tough one because that is unfortunately a troll. He was not too pleased with the sympathy that Edelman is getting. So, that's a tough start, Mike. So you were down 0-1. So you kind of anyone out there who's listening for this time, kind of see how this goes. We'll read a tweet
a bit outside.
Yeah, there you go. Throwing me off now. So now that you know that thinking music will be coming on, it'll be playing in the background as you think, and you hopefully will not be thrown off. I will move on to the next tweet. Let's see, and this is actually a comment on a quoted tweet of Adam Schefter. I mean, not that gives away anything at all, but the tweet says, Hold on. I'll read you the original Adam Schefter tweet, and this is not part of the game. It's part of the question, but not the actual one that you're going to be listening to. So it's Patriots wide receiver Julian Edelman's appeal was denied. So that was his tweet. The tweet that you will be choosing from, is it a journalist or a troll? Here's the tweet. Guess the chain of command wasn't broken. Very snarky, very cocky. Is that a journalist or a troll?
Guess the chain of command wasn't broken. That was the whole response.
Yep, that was the whole response. Very snarky.
Cryptic, snarky. I'm going with journalist on that.
Ooh, is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
And you would be correct. That was a journalist. Now, again, for extra points, and I'm always going to give you option for extra points because they're meaningless, and I can just give them away at a whim. Who said it?
Ooh. All right. I could ask for a lifeline on this one and ask if it's a local snarky journalist or a national snarky journalist. I don't know if you'll indulge me on that. But since this is for extra credit.
Well, extra credit. Yeah, I can do that. I'll give you a hint. It is a local journalist.
I thought so. This sounded local. Yeah. Let's see. Snarky. I don't know. I went with him last week and I was wrong. I'm going to go with Volan. I'm going to go with Trolling Ben Volan.
And for extra credit, you are correct. It is Trolling Ben Volan. He said this just 12 hours ago, or at least 12 hours from when I took the screenshot of this tweet. But, yeah, that kind of has his classic snark added to it. So you were right on, and I think your instincts were impeccable. Okay.
Yeah, that had Globe written all over it. It was either him or Shaughnessy, but
yeah,
if it was 12 hours ago, so that would have been another good lifeline too, to ask for the time of the tweet. If it was 12 hours ago, now Shaughnessy would have been having breakfast. I don't think he would have bothered.
Boom, boom. That's another soundbite I need. Well, that's good. So you're tied 1-1 right now. You got one right, one wrong. We're going to move on to the next one because I got a few of these. Now, Mike, you heard about the news about Kellen Winslow, correct? And we don't really have to get into it because it's not really a thing. But you're aware of the situation. So in a response to yet another Adam Schefter tweet, this person said, the New England Patriots once signed Kellen Winslow Jr. as an injury replacement for Aaron Hernandez, which has to be the highlight of Belichick's career. Now, Mike, is that a troll or a journalist?
Ooh. That's a tough one.
I know. That's why I picked it.
That's got a snark of a journalist to it, but it's got the feel of a troll to it as well. I want to say the direct attack on Belichick. I'm going to go with a troll on this one.
Ooh, and you are on fire. That is 2 in a row. I didn't even have to ask if that was your final answer because you did such a good job of breaking it down. I mean, you got your you're right. You know how to distinguish these guys. You really got a mind for picking out these trolls and journalists. You know them well. The breakdown was impeccable.
Yeah, I thought it was too direct of a hit at Bill for a journalist. I think that there's still, regardless of how much, there seems to be vitriol, a lot of vitriol toward Brady. Yeah, exactly. But there's a little bit of a direct hit. Well, Ron's got his own issues going on right now.
That's true.
We haven't heard much of Ron since he said that Brady was demanding, a top. That didn't end up working out so well for old Ron. But
yeah, maybe he'll go the way of Bart Hubbock.
Oh God, no. Regardless of how we feel about Borges, not bad.
Oh God, yeah. I don't think it's hard to reach that level of awfulness, but fortunately, we don't know anyone in the local media that has got to that level yet. We have a few that are close, And perhaps there's some national guys that are at that level, but that Bart Hubbock level, that's you got to be a very, very special type of person to to really stoop to that low. So we won't get into that. And I'll break it to you. We don't have any Bart Hubbock tweets because he is no longer on Twitter. So unfortunately, I cannot go back and pull his old tweets because I'm sure it'd be a treasure trove of hard journalist or troll stumping tweets. So let's see. I think I got one more. Well, actually, I got a couple more. Do you want one more? You want to risk going 2 for 2, or going 3 and 1?
Well, I'll tell you what. If I go 3 and 1 on this, we'll end on a high note, and if not, we'll have to break the tie.
All right. Well, this one I think might be tough, but then again, I might just be throwing you off. So this statement, this tweet said, Tom Brady is the greatest system quarterback of all time. Is that a troll or journalist?
Oh, all right. Well, this is tough because I've seen a lot of quote-unquote journalists make this argument, and I've seen a lot of trolls make this argument. This was a tweet from today?
This was a tweet from yesterday.
Oh,
or
okay. All right. So
within the last few days.
Okay. I'm going to go with journalist on this. Just a gut reaction.
Is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Is it really your final answer?
Yes, it is.
All right. And you are correct. Correct. I was trying to get you. I was trying to see if you were going to sway, but you stayed behind your conviction. And that journalist, I'll tell you because I don't think you're going to be able to guess this one because I think this will be pretty obscure. But it was Nate Burleson, and it actually wasn't a tweet. It was actually a statement he made on the show. But obviously, he made the argument that Brady, whatever the hell it means, Brady is the greatest system quarterback. I guess that's his way of diminishing his Brady's greatness. But you're right though. That was a tough one because you pretty much get that argument from anyone who doesn't know football, and that's why it was surprising that it was Burleson.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would not have guessed Burleson in any stretch of the imagination, but it's just a blanket statement like that where he's the best system quarterback of all time. Not really any context behind it. And the fact that it was recent, really, usually those types of arguments are made by quote-unquote journalists. They'll throw that out there and try to, get everybody riled up and really kind of increase their Twitter mentions, increase their hashtags and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's what it spoke to me when you said that. But, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed Burleson, but I guess 3 and 1. I'll definitely I'll pull a George Costanza and I'll quit while I'm ahead and say thank you, everyone.
Okay, I'm out. No, I mean apparently I have to make these questions a little bit tougher. I mean I thought they were tough, but apparently you're right on top of this. I mean you went into incredible detail on how you distinguish between the two, and you're pretty much spot on. So well done. I'll give you my round of applause.
It's a burden and a gift, but one that I hold, very very honorably, and definitely glad that I could assist you in this way. No, I'll get inside. No, they are. They actually really, really are. You really have to, and part of the breakdown of what I'm doing is really it's not so much for dramatic effect. I would love to be able to say it is, but a lot of it is just, you just breaking it down and really just thinking out loud and saying to yourself, okay, well, who would say this, who wouldn't? It amazes me that the amount of quote-unquote journalists in our business put this stuff out there. Again, like we've said before, a lot of it is throwing toilet paper against the wall and just seeing what sticks. And, because of the fact that Brady and the Patriots are so polarizing, you can throw a tweet out there about them and it's going to get an initial response. It's like tweeting out something about LeBron James or tweeting out something about, the New York Yankees. I mean, it's going to get that visceral response from people and it's polarizing. You either love it or you hate it, and you'll scream at the top of your lungs defending it, while the next person is standing across screaming at the top of their lungs to tear it down. So, good stuff. I really like this segment, and I encourage people to participate. We're definitely looking for that, and definitely if you got a question that you want to stump me on, by all means, if you want to call in and be an investment, we absolutely would appreciate it.
I like it. Stump the debate. One of my favorite shows to watch. Yeah, Stump the Schwab.
the marketing possibilities there just really, really blew my mind. You gotta love that.
Oh, we will certainly come up with that, but no, that's something we'll keep doing, and we'll fine tune it. We'll make sure that we get some more dramatic '70s music and really make have a fun time. And I'm sure once we get closer to football season, we're gonna have plenty of material. So this is gonna be a pretty easy thing to pick up some of these tweets. But once we get going,
it'll be a good precursor.
Yeah, we'll try to get some. When we have some callers call in, and we'll give away some prizes because we like giving away things, and it's always enjoyable. So we talked about a lot today. We had a great guest in Andrew Erickson. We talked a lot of fantasy football. We talked Patriots wide receivers. We talked Patriots running backs. We didn't talk a lot of Tom Brady. We did a lot of that last week. Really, there isn't much in the news, so there's not much to necessarily talk about. However,
I love Tom Brady.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Scott. We get it.
I was going to say,
love Tom Brady. Well, he was busy.
Every 3 seconds last week.
Yeah. Well, he was watching Independence Day. He got a jump start.
I think he was still grilling, wasn't he? I think he's still saw pictures on social media about him, standing near the grill. So
well, good for him.
He still has that.
He's multitasking.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun talking running backs, talking fantasy football. Andrew Erickson is going to be a valued guest and a fun guest to have on throughout the season. So again, be sure to follow him. It's at Andrew Erickson _, and you can follow the Patriots account, of course. Always, it's at FPC _Patriots. So at the beginning of the show, I posed 3 questions. We essentially answered the first 2 in our talks about. Who's going to step up in Edelman's absence, and will Sony Michel make an immediate impact? So before we end the show on this wonderful, wonderful birth of this great country, I got to ask you, what is the best line from the movie Independence Day?
Oh, no.
Yes.
Now this is even more pressure, and this is even more putting me on the spot than not putting me on the spot, but this is even more gut-wrenching, to really, pick from a plethora of quotes that you can possibly pick.
So are you saying you're unprepared?
I'm not saying I'm unprepared. I'm just saying that I've been dreading this moment since you brought it up, because it's very, very difficult for me to actually select one line from that movie that I would really want for, to be the greatest line from Independence Day. I'm going to go with an obscure line that most people wouldn't remember, but I remembered it and I thought it was great. I thought Judd Hirsch was awesome in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I loved his one-liners. I loved the delivery. I thought he was great, and I loved particularly the scene when everyone was in Area 51 and Bill Pullman, as President Whitmore, is coming down the ramp, and he's saying, "I don't understand. How can you guys find funding for this stuff?" And he just looks at him and he says, "Well, you don't think they actually spend $20,000 on a toilet seat, $10,000 on a hammer, do you?" And he looks at and he just shrugs his shoulders with that, come on, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure this out. And I thought it summed up just the spirit of the movie so well. So I'm going to go with that being the maybe an obscure line, but that was my favorite line of the movie. So.
No, it's certainly I can't argue with that. I mean that's a really good one, and I actually almost added it to our audio files, but I'm actually right there with you. I have the same guy. He was excellent in that movie, and one of the things I actually thought you were going. I'm mistaken when you said Area 51, I was thinking Air Force One. But when they were on Air Force One, and they were arguing about what to do, and of course Jeff Goldblum, who has plenty of great lines in this movie too. Let's not sell him short. I mean, it's Jeff Goldblum. Come on now. But
of course.
My favorite when he was explaining why David was right, and it was this line.
You knew then, and you did nothing.
I love it. It's my favorite line. You knew then, and you did nothing. It's just the change in tone, the animation in his face, and just that, I don't know, he just really he killed it. He killed it in that movie. It was a very underrated performance.
Yeah, he absolutely did. I mean, and you mentioned, and that's a great choice. That is a great choice. And you mentioned Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Goldblum had great lines in that movie. I mean, let's try this again. This time without the oops. I mean, great great lines that, I mean, even him, even something as stupid as Will Smith saying Elvis has left the building and him turning around and patting him on the shoulder and going, thank you very much. I mean, just like those types of, those types of lines, just they're indelible, and that's what made that movie so fun.
And if you remember, he going back to your nice transition from Jurassic Park back into Independence Day, Jeff Goldblum actually made a nice little reference to Jurassic Park when they were leaving the mothership. Yeah, and he said, "Must go faster." And for anyone out there, exactly. That's exactly right from Jurassic Park, another classic movie. One maybe if I'm still awake after Independence Day, I'll watch as well because why the hell not?
Another classic line. Another classic line. One of my favorite movie lines of all time is him and the late great Sir Richard Attenborough, who played John Hammond in Jurassic Park, saying that when they opened Disney World in 1952, nothing worked, and Jeff Goldblum just delivering a deadpan, well, John, the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat tourists. Great line.
I love it. And if anyone out there is listening and realizes how specific we get on this line, then you'll know quite simply that we don't get out much.
As you can imagine, they don't let us out much.
No, they don't, because it wouldn't be good for anyone. But that gives us plenty of time. Yeah, it gives us plenty of time to watch all these classic great movies, and of course, bone up on all of our Patriots stuff. Because for a second there, I forgot this was a Patriots show.
Yeah, I think most people did. They're probably like tuning in, going, "These guys talking about Jurassic Park? What are you doing?"
Well, I mean, it's just greatness. So we can always make that correlation between greatness and great movies and greatness in sports, and that would be the New England Patriots. And with that, I would like to say this was a great show, and I think it's only starting to get great, and it will continue to get great. So, Mike, once again, it's been a pleasure. We've had some laughs. We killed some time. And I look forward to doing this again next week. So everyone out there listening, and I want to say thank you to everyone out there listening, everyone who's tweeted us, all of our friends and listeners and all that. We will have this show up on iTunes. It'll be up on the website, and it'll also be up on YouTube, so you can check us out there if you want to listen again or listen for the first time. We welcome you. Next week we will be back once again for another couple hours. We'll announce some guests, and hopefully it'll be another fun week. Probably not as much Independence Day talk, but hey, today was a special day. So again, you can follow the Patriots account. It is at FPC_Patriots. You can follow myself. It's at IGLEN31, and you can follow Mike. It's at MDABATEFPC. And make sure you check out all the great content from fullpresscoverage.com. We have a couple new. We mentioned the Fantasy Football Podcast. We also have our friends Chris and Steve. They have their podcast, Steve in the Hood, Boston Sports Podcast, that we just put up last night. So go ahead and check that out. They jump into the Edelman debate a little bit as well, and talk a little bit more about Boston sports in general. So be sure to check that out. And Mike, do you have any closing statements or closing comments and thoughts? Take it away.
No, absolutely not. I think you summed everything up perfectly. End on a high note, and we do wish everyone sincerely a happy 4th of July. Hope you enjoyed your holiday, and we look forward to bringing you coverage as best we possibly can.
And with that said, everyone have a great night, and enjoy your 4th of July and fireworks, and we will talk to you next week. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Let go of your fears and hang on to your suit. It's about to go down. Vanish Point, the new drop slide at Adventure Island. Plunge into 70 feet of free fall with over 400 feet of screaming, soaking fun. The all-new Vanish Point is now open. Drop in again and again with the best deal of the summer. Buy a Busch Gardens Fun Card, get an Adventure Island Fun Card free. Hurry, offer ends July 1st. Restrictions apply.
Chicago. And REO Speedwagon, Saturday, July 21st, Mid-Florida Credit Union Amphitheater at the Florida State Fairgrounds. 2 bands, 1 night, and all the hits. REO Speedwagon, Chicago. Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com, part of the Clean Earth Systems Concert Series.